I have received a question about living in an environment with aggressive and depressed people and what to do about it when that is affecting person a lot. So basically I'm just gonna give you kind of like my take on it. It depends on your level of, I guess, awareness, and it also depends on your circumstances, what you want or what you can do about it. So I believe that to start with, it's not an easy environment to live in. And there is this law of attraction and also a law of entrainment, that for example, if you are in an environment which is aggressive and depressive, and the environment is like that and you are in it, you're gonna become like that too, or you'll feel the type of like a resistance and friction with that type of energy until either the environment is going to change or you're gonna have to leave. And then if none of that happens, what is going to continue to happening is suffering. It's like kind of like a effect, like you are somewhere where you don't fit in well, you are somewhere where you feel bad and you want to feel good, but you can't because your environment does not support it. So okay, I think that the first thing to do when being in that type of situation is to look for internally part in you which is the same as your environment. I believe that our external situations is reflecting our internal situation. So if we have a bad relationship with somebody, that means we have a bad relationship with ourselves in some way. And it doesn't come from out there, it comes from in there, because our reality and our experience is kind of like a manifested from within. So we become attracted to that type of circumstances. And having that type of energies might not be your fault. It depends on where you are born. It depends on what your parents were like. It depends on like your school, your kindergarten situation. And sometimes, we might not even be aware that we have that in us. Like for example, if I'm with depressed people, that means there is a part in me that feels depressed and I may be suppressing it. And if I'm suppressing that part, it actually comes into my reality in the form of other people, so to make me aware that I have a part within me which is depressed. If I have people in my environment who are aggressive and I'm very like a peace-loving and kind and loving person, that means it could be at some point in my life I have disidentified myself from the part of me who is aggressive. And for example, like aggression, it has a function, so it's not to be seen as necessarily not evil and a horrible thing, because sometimes it may help you. So what to do? I would go inside of myself, so it's kind of like becoming in a neutral state, and call the part of you who is depressive and aggressive, or it can be few parts, or it could be like a part in you that represents all that, and start integrating it. Now, how to integrate? Integration is basically accepting something which is ours, which we kind of like pushed away, or it was pushed away from us subconsciously or consciously, and now we're kind of re-owning it. Once we start re-owning it, the attraction point is not so strong anymore, because we already own that energy within us. That means our external reality doesn't have to reflect it to us in such a black and white and contrasting way. So that's kind of like that's what I would say, that's a long but from, it doesn't have to be long. Sometimes once we become clear enough and we become accepting enough, the process could be quite quick. Now, what do we do also in the physical action and in the physical world? Like sometimes there is something that we can do energetically and our circumstances change. And I believe that's actually true every single time. However, I also believe that when we change something internally, like energetically, or we accept something about ourselves, sometimes the pressure from the outside becomes even harder and becomes even more unbearable. So let's say we have integrated part of us which is depressed and which is aggressive. So either our relationships with the people outside of us which change and become not so contrasty, not so edgy, not so tense, not so emotionally charged, or the contrast and the experience might become even stronger to the degree that we would not be able to really continue with that. And if that happens, or even before that happens, a good idea is to actually change something in the physical circumstances. I know it's not possible for everybody to, let's say, move away from the environments because of the money, because of the job, because of the location, because of circumstances, because of the laws and things like that. But the question is, if you had a best friend or the person that you really loved who would be in that situation, what would you tell that person to do? What would you tell them to do? And is there any way to make your circumstances and situation better? Because it's also to do with boundaries. It's like it depends on what we allow other people to do to us, what kind of treatment we accept, also how we treat others. So all of this is not to say, oh my god, well, this is your fault and sort it out, but this is kind of like a technical part on how to do it in order to change it. Self-compassion and kind of understanding that you are where you are and it is not your fault that you are in these circumstances, because you were born where you were born, you had parents the way you had your parents, you had the circumstances the way you have your circumstances. And if another person would be born with your brain, with your experiences, with the way you interpret life, they would be exactly the same. So it is not your fault. That's one thing to understand. Not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. Do something about it energetically, internally, emotionally, and also take inspired action. So, also, I don't believe in only focusing into what you want, but I believe in a clarity of knowing what you want. And I believe in clarity knowing what you don't want. So once you kind of get this clear idea that that's how I would like to be treated by people in my environment, then you can start yourself attuned to that, and you can also start to say, no, I don't want to accept that type of treatment. No, I actually don't want to accept that type of behavior. No, actually, I don't want this to be done to me. So this is something that I think helps for us to kind of set our boundaries and to say, okay, this is okay and this is not okay. So, and another thing is to understand that you're not on your own. There are people like you, and there are people who are suffering. Of course, your situation is unique. Every one's of us situation is unique, but there is a hope, and the fact that you are asking questions about it and you're seeking for help, it is a sign that you are a match for the change. Thank you for watching, and thank you for asking this question. I hope it helps. Bye.